Roland showed kind of this picture of um, deploying the cloud packs, but this is deploying software on Kubernetes. And in our case, we're deploying software on OpenShift. And for the most part, when we do engagements with clients and we show them these are basically the value add of moving into containers. Of like some of our clients are running maybe MQ on bare metal and non-containers, and we show them that moving to containers, you get these benefits of high availability, easier to roll out updates and do operations. And we start by showing them the console, the GUI, and doing commands, doing like OC apply, kubectl apply, configuring, and then maybe use Ansible or Terraform to do kubectl applies. And those things are like imperative commands, what I call imperative commands, that you configure the software, and then you go to the GUI, and then you show them the Cloudpack user interface where you can provision like the services. You can provision like it becomes their cloud, where they can provision from that UI the different services, and they can go and do even like dev, staging, and prod in a single cluster or different clusters. But then what we do is like some other team comes in and say, we're going to set up this for production. And that's where they started talking about, do we set up the cluster again with this OC apply, Ansible, shell scripts, or do we use the GUI? And we were trying to show them that by leveraging some of the Kubernetes aspects, the OpenShift aspects of the software, the configuration being declarative, they can save this declarative configuration, the desired configuration in Git, and then we can move to this, what we were showing you today, is moving to GitOps. So instead of, and the idea is like, it's good to start like this. So you can get something working, you can test things, it's quickly, it's visual. But once you get something working, one aspect is maybe you can extract or grab that configuration out of that cluster and save it somewhere. That then you can apply that same configuration files to a different cluster, maybe a different region on premise or on cloud, for example. So what we're trying to tell them is to start moving into so they started with a GUI and commands, and now we're telling them, hey, push those configurations into Git, and then don't do the configuration to direct deploy. So stop doing direct deploy. And then the idea is, how do we move the configuration from Git, which is the place that most of the development teams use, and also operations starting to use Git as their source of truth, put that configuration there, but somebody needs to get that configuration into the cluster. And that's where we bring the OpenShift GitOps. And this is a technology that it would like mirror or synchronize the configuration that is in Git to the configuration that is in the data store in OpenShift Kubernetes, which is etcd at the end of the day. But the benefit is, and I think Roland mentioned that, if for some reason a software, an utility, an automation, a human being goes into the cluster and maybe changes something by mistake, or changes something thinking that it was changing in some environment in one namespace and it changed it in a different namespace, this agent, we call an agent or OpenShift GitOps agent, will detect that I can self-heal or self-configure it to revert the change, or just notify you that there's something that the desired state doesn't match that. And that becomes something that is scalable for deployments. As customers want to deploy multiple clusters in different regions, in different environments, maybe upgrade the version of the cluster, it becomes easier just to have the desired configuration static, deploy the cluster, and that's what Noel showed, that aspect of it. And if it works on IBM Cloud, it should work in all environments, right? It should work on AWS, Azure, and on-premise. And the idea is that you can have a cluster on-premise and a cluster on cloud, and some configuration is common and some configuration is different. But regardless which one is common or not, you put them in Git, and then you go with the directory structure in Git. So this is another kind of way of seeing it, right? That if you have something in premise or different clouds, you have that Git configuration, and people are working unattendedly and using Git, and also Git serves as an audit log, right? Not a blockchain ledger, but at least a log that says who made the change to the Git repo, and did they follow maybe practices like submitted a change request or pull request, or a change management like configuring ServiceNow or Jira ticket configuration that somebody needs to require change in the production environment. It needs to go through a system like ServiceNow or Jira, and that is a configuration that can go along with the GitHub Git or GitHub pull request. And then when everything is ready to be deployed or configured, maybe you wait for a window, then you merge the code and the agent automatically deploys. So that's what the idea is, that it's a cycle of having the desired state in Git and then the observed state in the cluster, which is what Kubernetes is doing inside. Kubernetes is a set of controllers watching that the state in etcd as Kubernetes resources or Openshift resources match the desired configuration on the cluster, and we use to take action, we use GitOps, and that's the GitOps automation. So just to show, and then this is just to recap. Noel will show the infrastructure layer, which is you can configure things at the cluster scope. So we call this infrastructure layer things like the object storage, the storage, like OCS, OpenShift Cluster Storage, or machine sets, machine configs, the configuration of the registry, internal registry, maybe global pull secrets, cluster roles, anything that is global for the cluster. And I'm going to show in a minute the shared services, where you usually put the operators, and sometimes it's one operator instance for the whole cluster, and sometimes it's a instance, a CR for that operator that multiple applications will use. And then the third one is the applications. And when we talk to clients and in the field, usually these teams are not one team. One single team owns everything. There's teams that are multiple. Usually there's multiple teams that are the applications teams, and there's like one or two that are in charge of making sure that the shared services are configured properly in the cluster or SaaS. And then we have another team that is the infrastructure that makes sure like clusters are created, the base of the cluster configuration, usually not network storage, is configured, and permissions are configured. And that's kind of the 2, 1, 2, 3 that you will see in our files and the framework. So just to have a correlation to that. So let's go with the GitOps. Since we're doing GitOps, we can show you kind of our GitOps structure here. That what we've done is we have put the things that we have to deploy or the components are divided in 3. Like I said, the infrastructure. So you will have a GitHub repo representing a Git repo representing the infrastructure things. That's we call infra. The second one is shared services. So this is usually where we put the cloud packs. And you have to take this into account, that is customers our clients are not just worrying about the IBM software. In these clusters, there's more vendor software. There's software, other vendors, and then IBM software. So they, from their point of view, they want a consistent way of managing the software in the cluster, not just having the one vendor way of doing things. So GitOps is one way that they can have a consistency across all the software. So we in the shared services is where we put the cloud pack, for example, or if you need to install the Instana agent. Instana agent is a daemon set. You just install the operator or the Helm chart, you install one of them. Or if you have cloud pack for integration, you install maybe the common services and for cloud pack for integration, and then you have the different, for example, if it's MQ, maybe you have different queue managers for dev stage and production. And that goes to the next level, which is the applications. And then for the applications is the different repos, and I put different ones here that are for the teams to deploy their applications. This could be microservices, but we have done some workloads that are similar to microservices, which are the cloud packs for integration, that different teams, if in a large cluster, will have different queue managers. So you want to have testing for those and promote them with certain gates, either functional testing or non-functional testing like performance, or functional testing like Postman. So we have done, we have examples using ACE, for example, App Connect and MQ. Those are typical things in API Connect. We have others also, but we have put the CRs, the instances of those, not in the share one, but we have put them in the apps one, where we use a technology called Customize that helps you manage kind of the delta of those environments, and they use overlays. So you can have dev, stage, and production. So the promotion will go, you go through some build, go to dev, you do some functional testing, and if it passes, then the YAML files or the configuration files will be updated in staging, and maybe you do some non-functional testing, maybe performance, and maybe some other end-to-end tests, and then that will go to production. But the idea is that then the customer ends up with this massive amount of repos and folders, and then how do you deploy them into the different clusters? That's why we use Argo for that. So we have this repo, we call it the GitOps repo, and this is where we use the GitOps apps of apps approach, where we put things in layers. So you will deploy the Argo apps in different layers. So we have the infra, we have the services, and we have the apps. And with that, you will deploy the Argo apps for each one. So you will have apps that represent. So the idea is, like, if you want certain software in a cluster, you put the Argo apps or the GitOps applications associated, and I deploy them to that cluster, and each cluster will have an Argo instance that will pull in from this Git repo. And the same thing for the services, and the same things for the apps. And we have a little bit of governance by making them part of an Argo project, and an Argo project can govern a little bit, saying these Argo apps are only allowed to deploy to these namespaces, and these Argo apps are maybe only allowed to be deployed from these Git repos or Helm repositories. That way you have a little bit of control of what gets deployed and from where, and to which namespaces. So that's kind of like the architecture for those people in the audience that are architects. That's kind of the architecture that that we have. And just to get a few minutes to talk about pipelines, because I mentioned this dev, stage, and production. So we have examples of that using Openshift Pipelines. And Openshift Pipelines is based on an open source project called Tekton. Openshift Pipelines is another add-on from Openshift that you get from Openshift. And we have Openshift GitOps, which is the one for Argo. And what we have is examples of using promoting ACE flows, MQ Manager, API Connect, your typical microservices where they live in a certain GitHub repo, and we call those the source Git repos. And when somebody makes a change to those Git repos, it will trigger a pipeline. Then they will do type of imperative tasks on those assets, like static analysis, maybe scanning the code, linting the code, building images. But the idea that we have been pushing around our area is that those pipelines don't deploy software. They just do quality testing and gates. And then at the end, they configure the files in the configuration for GitOps. So they go back to a GitOps repo where they put the candidate version. And then Argo or GitOps will wake up and say, I need to deploy this version of the app in the dev namespace, and it gets deployed to the dev namespace. And that's kind of like the pattern that we have. We have a website called cloud-native-toolkit.dev where we show kind of like this pattern of DevOps, and usually it's more attractive to the dev teams or the application teams, but some of the DevOps and operations team are using this for example, middleware workflows. Like I said, MQ and ACE is good candidates for this. But in this case, this is an example just using IBM MQ, where we deploy IBM MQ into the dev, and the same thing happens again. A different pipeline runs. We do end-to-end testing using Postman or using another tool, and the candidate will go back to Git. So Tekton never deploys to the cluster. It just wakes up Argo to deploy that candidate because it passed the test to the staging, and maybe it has a different configuration in stage, and that's saved in Git. and that will happen again, and it becomes a pattern that people need, follow along as they promote software with confidence. And the last one is they do kind of non-functional tests. You can do performance tests in here, like JMeter. So we have an example for that. And then the application gets promoted into production by Argo. So the desired state in production is matched to the one that is in Git. So there's no need to run the pipeline again to redeploy, or if you change the configuration, no need to start from the beginning. It's just the configuration that is in production. And then we have Instana that we configure to monitor that, always monitor, like always you go to production, it's always monitoring the environment, and you can get, your notifications and metrics from Instana. And some people decide also like they want to be notified when the new version shows in production. So you can also even customize that with a smoke test and notification. So to show that, let's move on to a cluster that I deployed the same way you folks deployed. So if I go to reservations, so let's see something hands-on, because that's usually what clients want to see it. Sometimes they want to like just you need to get to the point that you show me the stuff. So as you can see, I deploy a few clusters. Some of here are like backups. If somebody couldn't get a cluster, we'll assign some of this. I have one here. Let's test this one. So I show the experience that you get in TechZone. So once you get your cluster, this is how it shows up. So go to the library, go to my reservations, and you will see what you just saw there, the list of your clusters. Once you go in here, you will have your Argo CD. I can close these windows here to the right. You will have your password to Argo CD. You will have your Argo CD URL, but you also have your GitOps repo, and you have your cluster URL. So let me go to the cluster and log in there. And some people in the previous session were asking, like, is this only usable in rocks? And on these clusters, we have tested on OpenShift anywhere, AWS, on-premise, my laptop, anywhere. So this is not, it's just for today. We want to make it easy. So let me open the console here. And I'm using the console because I think the console is a very useful tool for learning. So I have this tool here that has everything installed already. So let me show you maybe how it's supposed to look like, right? So I have the one that has the cloud packs and that. So let me go back and select the other one that doesn't have the cloud packs. So that one was the one that I used in a meetup yesterday. I run a meetup weekly. So if you want to join, you're welcome to join. So I think what's this one, that the infra layer is already done. So I don't have to do it again. I will do layer 2. So 1, 2, 3. So layer 1 was infra. Layer 2 is shared services. We want to call them. We didn't want to call them common services, not get them confused with the other one. But this one is the one similar of that Noah was showing, right? And then so I should not have any operators in here, any cloud pack operators, but I should have my namespaces, cluster roles, storage, and everything else. So if I want to go to the GitHub repo or GitHub organization that you created. So this is the organization that you gave us empty, and in a few minutes, it will be populated with the 3 layers. So it's the infra, the shared services, and the GitOps. So the control point is the GitOps one, the one that you're going to select which GitOps components you want to deploy to which cluster. So if I go in here, this GitHub, I think the last month enabled a new feature, which I really love. It's a code editor on the browser. So if I hit the dot in my keyboard, or period, a new kind of like VS Code editor shows up. So this is very good if you're using GitHub. So I have some of my windows that I was working last night open. So let me close all of them in here. and show you what's in here. I think so we went from architects, I think, and we are now talking to the DevOps engineer. So if you can put a thumbs up, if you're a DevOps engineer and you like YAML, you can put a thumbs up in the Slack. So what we have in our framework is we have a Bootstrap folder. This Bootstrap folder is kind of like, we need to install one application, one Argo application, that then this application will deploy the 3 layers, and each layer will have an Argo application, like I show in the diagram. We have configurations that you can have multiple clusters. So we have configurations that you can have a cluster only for CI/CD, another cluster for dev, another cluster for staging, another cluster for production. So each one will get an Argo, each one will get a Bootstrap. We're not doing that today, but we just wanted to let you know that this thing is not just for one Hello World cluster. We also have the isolated one, or we have the one that is shared, like production in both. So it depends on the budget. So for today, for learning purposes, I usually tell people start with the single cluster. So Noel already did the layer 1 called infra. So I'm going to do layer 2. So you go to the folder called layer 2, you go to the customization.yaml, and we're using a tool called customize. Basically, customize allows you to select which resources do you want to deploy to the cluster. So the resources that we're deploying to the cluster is Argo CD applications or GitOps applications. Oh, the dot is just go to any GitHub repo and just press dot in your keyboard, and then it opens like this. It's nothing. I'm using Chrome, so it should work on any browser. And so you can follow along. So you will follow along with when Hardy's picks up back again. So if I want to deploy anything, what we have done is in here is we have not hide the YAML behind all the software, but made it easy to select with rational defaults to select which apps do you want to deploy. But if you want to override or change the default values, you can. But to get started, some of these things are overwhelming to some of our customers. So we want to start simple. So in the documentation, you will find recipes in here. And as we do those recipes, these recipes are exactly the same ones that are in the deployment guide in the website. It's just these are I'm having the files are the same here. So I'm going to follow since Holly's going to do Kappa for data, I'm going to select MQ. So I can open MQ. Let me open the customize, and I can have it side by side in here to know. So we already did it. We already edit the file for the infrastructure, so we can skip that. The next layer is what are the things. So maybe the people and the folks in the Slack is how many have deployed Cloud Pak, and what are the first thing that you need to install when you install the Cloud Pak, and what is the second, what is the third. So these are the type of things that we're going to do here. So we're going to select. So we need first what the catalogs, right? So we need the thing that represents the catalogs, the catalogs for the operators. Then the next thing that we have to select is we need common services. So this is why we said that we're like a cooking show, and this is the recipe. So we debated a lot, like what is the theme. So we just been cooking here, following recipes. So you select IBM Foundation, which is common services, but common services needs a instance, and this is a way that you can select if you want those t-shirt sizes, small, medium, or large. And this is just documentation that is in the Cloud Pak documentation. So I selected the instance here. And then we also need, so we want to deploy the platform navigator for Cloud Paks. So we need Foundation Core, and then we can select platform navigator here, operator. So you can see here, there's a folder called operator, and then an instance for that operator. So I have common services, I have platform navigator. What else do I need? Operators, platform navigator, common services, core, catalog, and we'll deploy Seal Secrets. Seal Secrets is a tool that we are using. A lot of people use Vault. Seal Secrets, another one, is a way to encrypt Kubernetes secrets and put them in Git in an encrypted form, and then they get decrypted when they show up in the cluster. And our framework gonna have that out of the box as a default thing, but you can use Vault or you can use another thing. What else does it say to install? So we can, and then let's select MQ. Let's select MQ. We can do ACE also API Connect. So I'll select MQ. I think that's, let me see if that's correct. So secrets, catalog, automation, foundation core, foundation, platform navigator, and then MQ. And I think that's it. That's all to deploy Cloudpak. So you go here and say, this is the changes that I want to see, verify that it's in a real environment production. You will be doing a pull request, right? A change management, since this is kind of a workshop and everybody has their own repo, we just merge it together. So you just do a git add, right? And we're going to do a git commit with a message. So you can do this in the GUI. So put here saying deploy MQ share services. So this would not install an MQ manager. This would install the MQ operator. Then we'll show either you can decide to create MQ manager on the GUI and then maybe grab the YAML back and then put it in Git and then install it in the layer 3 for the apps. So let's commit this, and this is getting pushed to the master branch in Git, and then we should see operators start showing up here soon. But in the meantime, I can open the GitOps GUI. Just the GUI is also good to see kind of like the environments here. So we put them side by side. They should show up in the services layer. So if I go to, let me see, oh, here it is. So they're coming up. So I think I selected services. So if you can filter by services here, you can say, I only want to see projects, services. So now you can start seeing the services coming up, the things that I selected. This is the Argo app of Argo apps. Make it a little bit bigger. And then it's starting IBM catalogs, IBM common services, the common services instance, the platform navigator operator, the platform navigator instance, is seal secret and MQ manager. So if we switch over here, those operators are starting to show up. And the idea is that then now that Git repository, you save it. So yeah, so these are the versions. These are the operators that are coming up, and it only took it only took a few YAML files that we move it here. And for the shared services, basically that's what we did. We follow the documentation, right? We didn't invent this. So in the documentation for the Cloudpak, it says this is how you install the Cloudpak. So we just follow the documentation. What we did was automate the process of like, these are the YAML files that the documentation tells you to install. So we just install them using automation. So we're not adding or subtracting any of the process here. It is what it is. These are the operators that you eventually need in your cluster. If you're going to do this with Ansible or a shell script or OC apply, you'll be doing 5 OC applies and you will get the same result. The only thing is a script that is imperative to non-script. So for example, I can go, one of the things that I can show is, let's say that I can go here and can go to the subscription and see that it's 1.6. So if somebody comes in here and it's not installed yet, that's why it's like that. Changes the version of MQ Manager maybe to a new version that is not compatible with the version of Platform Services, thinking that it's going to upgrade, then Argo will revert it back to the version that you want. Now there's a question that if you only want to install Cloudpak for I don't know. Yeah, you can only do that. That's okay. You decide what you want to install here by unselecting what you want. So it's up to you. We just have a few recipes to like guide you. Like if you want to install ACE, this is the files that you need to uncomment or that. How we do with time. So let me move, because this thing, common services is the one that takes a little bit of time. to come up. So let me move to a one that already have installed in here. I think it was the one that I wrote earlier. And I will show how that would look like and with ACE. So let me go to the one that I opened earlier. So I'll go to the next cluster, which is already cooked. It has MQ and ACE. Some of our clients want to have ACE workflows, either reading or writing to MQ managers. So this one has ACE. So I'm going to open the GitHub repo, which is a different GitHub repo. This is number 5. I'll go to the GitOps. And again, I'm going very fast here, but Holly is going to go slower. Also, I'm Hispanic, so I speak fast as a nature since I was born. So I cannot do anything about that, just trying to speak as slow as possible. But as you can see here, this one is customization. I have MQ. I don't know if this shows big or not. I have MQ here, but I went ahead. Basically, I did the same thing last night. I did the same thing, and then I wanted to have ACE installed in this cluster. So let's see how that looks like, right? So if you go to here and you open your CloudPack Administration Hub, we need to log in, right? Admin, and then I always forget how to get the instructions. So we usually have them here in the README. The recipe has them also in new version. So it's usually this credential in the common services. Again, because of demo, I didn't set up LDAP and properly login and all that, but this is something that you can do on your own. So we'll go to the common services one and get that password. So if I go to workloads, I go to secrets, I go to common services, I already have it there. Type this here, is this one that I want. So just bear with me. And the password. So let me get the password. And this is CloudPack, right? So if somebody comes to you, send it to me because now we have at least a easier way to install CloudPacks. So how do we find? So these are kind of like the CloudPack overview. This is called the CloudPack Zen UI, where you see the status. And then let's go to IBM Automation Tools, which is things like it logged me out. I don't know why I need to log in back. So let me log back in. I think it was the cookie session. And then this is the integration for ACE, MQ, API Connect, like IBM Automation. So as you can see, the reason I see these tiles here that says integration, 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 and messaging is because I installed the operators. If again, if you follow the instructions and the guides that we have, if you install the layer 3 apps, you start seeing MQ managers here. For dev staging, you will see ACE, MQ. But I think this is a good starting point because now you can easily like request a resource from TechZone, either for showing any client, hopefully, or learning purposes. You get a CloudPack up and running, and then you can walk the customer. Like I said, the GUI is a very good tool to give demos and visually show the customer these assets, and then turning around, grabbing those configuration files and put them in Git and give it to the next team saying, this is what you need to do for production and pipelines. So if I go to, for example, if I go to messaging, I can go in here and I can create a MQ manager, right? So anyone that is familiar with creating MQ queues, it can select the quick start, it can select the one for production, and then please grab those configurations, those YAML files, extract them and put them in Git, because with Argo, then you'll be able to deploy them. The same thing I can do with integration. So if I go to integration, integration capabilities here, and I can create a capability, I can create a integration dashboard, for example, or a design where I can see those. So if I'm on the dashboard, I can do like a dashboard for the quick start and then select the things that you do here. So this doesn't change what we do today. It's just to get us faster to the conversation of like the value add that the customer wants, and also like why is the benefit of moving to containers if they think they're happy with that they have today. So that's MQ and ACE, and then let me see if I can show a little bit of like the in-depth where that is in TechZone. So if we go back to TechZone, if you don't have a bookmark, we can take a look at Clapper for integration, and let's take a look at MQ. So if you go to these are the quick start. If you want to a tutorial for the next level, right, select MQ, and this will guide you through like setting up MQ in HA mode, building an application like a Spring application that talks to MQ, working with Tecton to promote the application, do testing, and everything is in Git and driven through Git and driven through GitOps. So you can, and then adding performance testing. So this is kind of like the next level of like, now we want to get this into production or to the same or better level that the one that it was in production. Business automation, yeah, we have Clapper for business automation, ODM, ACS, all those things is coming. Probably in a week or so, we'll have that one in the website. Clapper for security also is coming. The new version actually uses operators, so we're meeting with the team to create those YAML files to plug them into the framework. The good thing is we got the framework done and the practices documented, and that's just the automation. The thing that we have to also take into account that this site has production considerations, right? Production considerations are not automations. Production considerations are things like capacity planning, for example, or security, or different cloud aspects, storage, and so on. So we have our different security, availability, right? HA, DR, that kind of has automation, but it doesn't have to. Some folks are in their journey that they need these and not necessarily are going to do the full automation. Maybe they're paying technical debt for now, but these are the things that we have to have. We have to have something for what is in the truck today, right? We need to get customers to production today in a secure manner and a reliable manner.